Good morning, and welcome to the first edition of Tip Off for this NBA season. I'm David Locke. Thank you very much for taking the time. The way we're going to do this year is it's both as it was last year on YouTube. Locked On Sports 2 is the new channel, and then also on audio as a podcast each and every morning. I will be taking your questions via Twitter, hashtag locketipoff. I'll get through those in a minute. I'm going to hit the top stories, update you usually on what's going on with the Jazz and the NBA, and we'll touch on some other things. Today, I wear this in honor of Andrew Luck, who should have won the Heisman. Respect Robert Griffin, but Andrew Luck is the best player, and I laugh when people talk about him taking Baylor to new heights. We're talking about Stanford. Andrew Luck took Stanford to back-to-back two-win seasons. All right, there's breaking actually news story as we bring you tip-off, which probably will have changed in 3 iterations by the time it gets to you. But the Clippers have submitted a deal to the league for the Hornets. They will trade Eric Gordon, Al-Farouq Aminu, Chris Kaman, and the unprotected Minnesota draft pick for Chris Paul. This leaves the Clippers with Chris Paul. I'm not sure who they'll have as their 2, Caron Butler, Blake Griffin, and then I would assume the reason they've included Kaman in the deal is so that they can re-sign DeAndre Jordan. Warriors then getting nothing, which is good news for the Jazz, unless it means the Warriors are too bad. There's a concern here that the Warriors could be too terrible. Remember, the Jazz get the Warriors pick. It's top 7 protected this year and top 6 protected next year, or else it goes away. We need the Warriors to get a little bit better. They've lost out on Chandler, and they're about to lose out on DeAndre Jordan as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. But the Clippers become pretty good. The West is good. The Jazz are having a nice camp, but I'm walking around the West, and everyone's just getting a notch better, notch better, notch better, and it's really quite impressive. Let me update you on the things that are going on at Jazz camp right now. There's 3 stories out of the first 2 days of camp, and honestly, I don't know what happened yesterday yet. I will head down to practice, and then please follow me on the various social media pieces that we have for you in regards to that. And by the way, just a side note, this is how that's going to work. If you're on Twitter, you follow me at Locked On Sports. If you're on Facebook and not Twitter, follow Locked On Sports, and you'll get basically the same stuff. My personal account, which had to become a fan page just because it got too big, which sucks, by the way, is David Locke. Follow me there. That's kind of what I do in my life, and I share, whatever. We all interact. I can't interact as well because of that. And then Google Plus is a place to interact about the stories I post on Locked On Jazz. So that's the way we're doing it. And then we have this. All right, here are the 3 stories coming out of Jazz camp right now. Number 1 is the health of Memo. I was talking to Paul Millsap the other day, and I kind of purposely asked an open-ended question, wondering, hey, does anybody look good? And what I'm really asking is, how's Memo look? But if I ask Paul that question, he has to say yes. He looks good. And what does he come back and say? Well, Memo looks good. I went to another player who I didn't have a mic on anyway, so I don't want to. I said, anything I should take away from the first 2 days? He's like, yeah, Memo's back. So every indication is that Memo's back. There's still some questions defensively. Who his best combination in the front court is a great debate. How you integrate those 4 guys, Cantor not, I don't think, expected to get a lot of minutes, but available if needed. Will be interesting. Does Memo work with Al, but then you're awfully slow? Does Memo work with Favors and let him have one-on-one matchups, and you put Al and Millsap together, but that didn't work very well? So there's a lot of different angles on how this all plays out and what takes place, but the fact that Memo's back, I actually think changes the Jazz. It gives them some more ammunition. Without Memo, I think this team is pretty low on the Western Conference of teams with the youth and some of the areas of disadvantages that they'd have. But on the other end of things, I would say with Memo, it really changes everything. Really, really changes everything. If Millsap could actually slide back, if Favors were to take the jump we expect, you suddenly, Al's an above-average center, particularly offensively, kind of. And then defensively, we'll get to that in a second. Then you suddenly have Favors if he can be an average power forward until he really clicks. Then you suddenly go back to Millsap as your third big. You have the best third big, and Memo would be if he's playing at all, would probably be the best 4th big in the maybe in the NBA. And so suddenly you have a really good depth in that area, and maybe you can do some things and build a team. And if you really go back to the teams that were so good under Boozer and Darren, it was that Harper and Fisher bench that really won those games while the starters stayed close, and so maybe that's something that can be done here. The other story out of camp is Al. Much more athletic. I wrote about it at Locked On Jazz. Big time workouts. Just the fact that he spent an entire 4 month, June, July, August, actually more, from June on, in Santa Barbara shows a commitment level that you have to like. He's going to have to improve some things, but just the commitment's there, we'll see. And then the last one is everyone's murmuring about Alec Burks a little bit right now. Everyone's quite pleased with what they're seeing in regards to Alec Burks. I don't know if we end up with Burks and Hayward starting. It seems like that'd be awfully young. Could you imagine if Burks, Hayward, and Favors are all starting? That'd be really young. But there's no question in anyone's mind that Burks is going to be able to score in this league. Defensively, he's going to have to learn how to play a lot more possessions, and that will be curious to see how he does. Maybe for that reason, you bring him off the bench. Time will tell on these. Okay, a few other NBA notes. Lamar Odom to Dallas. I'm assuming the Lakers have Dwight Howard next, but there is some talk that Lamar just had worn out his welcome with the front office. Remember this about the Lakers. Jerry Buss ran that team with Mitch Kupchak, and now the Buss sons have taken over, and they're known to be, and Jeannie, and they're known to be a bit erratic. And I think you just have to wonder where the culture of that organization is and what they're doing right now. Hey, they end up with Dwight Howard. They're fine. They have so many advantages. They probably are going to be just fine. But let's keep an eye on it. It doesn't look like that deal is completely done yet. And maybe they line themselves up to get it, but it does also look like that Odom was a salary cut to some extent and moved to Dallas, of all crazy things. The West was crazy. Lakers are not as good. Dallas is not as good, though I like the Odom pickup. OKC's ready to roll. Clippers suddenly get in this mix, but they're too young to make that run. Memphis is going to evidently match the Gasol offer that Houston made this week, which then leaves us to Nene, and Nene should be decided here shortly. Most people think he ends up in Denver. He's certainly willingly sitting out right now, waiting to see where everything goes, and that will be the next trick of where Nene ends up. But the expectation is that here inside 3 days, Memphis matches Gasol, then Houston will re-offer on Nene, unless in that time period Dwight Howard goes to the Lakers, then New Jersey asks on Nene. Okay, there'll be a test on all this later. It's really a bit crazy. Okay, final notes for you. I don't have a lot of time here because we started a new YouTube channel. We have a few limits. So let me just go to some of the tip-off questions. I got to get this thing done inside the 10-minute window. The first tip-off question. Taught me off the ledge about super teams. I don't think I can talk, and that's from BYU mid-major. I don't think I can talk you off the ledge about super teams. I think they're going to exist, but frankly, they've always existed. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar left Milwaukee to go to L.A. Oscar Robertson demanded trades along the way. They've always existed. They existed when the Jazz made the finals against the Bulls, and it just means you're going to build your team differently. If you're the Jazz, you're going to try to build a deeper team rather than a top-loaded super team. Coming in from... Sorry, I couldn't read it. Bin Fordbot, where will Jeremy Evans get his minutes? He's flown completely under the radar. Jeremy is still a unique niche player who does terrific things, but I don't think you're going to see him getting huge minutes, though he does make things happen when he's on the floor. He's going to have to figure out – he's not big enough to be a 4. His body just gets pushed out of the way. And he's not a good enough shooter or ball handler yet to be a 3, but he's an impact player, comes off the bench, changes games, does a lot of interesting things in that regard. And I think that's where Jeremy Evans fits until we see a skill development. From Dixon D, and you can send me these questions at #Locketipoff. Do you think Millsap could start at the 3 to open up minutes for other Jazz bigs? No, I don't at all. Millsap is a great third big, and that's really what Paul is. He's not more than that. Don't try to put him as a 3. He doesn't have 3 skills. He is the best third big in the NBA, and every good team has one. And when Favors emerges, that is where the Jazz will get him. Final one from Andrew Thorson. When will we start to see the starters emerge? I'm stoked about our bench this year. I don't know, and I think that's a question I'm going to talk to Ty about today, if he's beginning to see combinations or how he works with that. So, but I don't think I'll get much of an answer. One other note, J.J. Barea, 4-year deal to Minnesota has just come across my feed here. All right, that's the first edition of Tip-Off. Thanks so much. Send your questions to Lock Tip-Off. You can get this both at Locked On Jazz on iTunes as well as here on YouTube on Locked On Sports 2. Will be the channel all year long for the Jazz games or for the Jazz videos.